Good morning, I'm Pauline Verzosa. It is Friday, the 6th of February, and we're bringing you Morning Matters because your mornings matter. The impact of Tropical Storm Basyang is intensifying across Mindanao, prompting disaster officials to remain on high alert. Now stay tuned as we provide continuous updates later in the hour. A new power-sharing dynamic is taking shape in the Senate after the majority bloc thwarted recent attempts to unseat Senate President Tito Sotto. Members of the majority are now targeting 2028 for Senator Legarda to make history as the first woman to lead the Philippine Senate. And the Vice President faces a growing wave of legal challenges as a third petition for her removal from office is set for filing next week. The new filing will join the complaints currently pending before the House Justice Committee, which are backed by the Makabayan Bloc and reform groups. Welcome to our program, Morning Matters, where we talk about the issues you need to know for the rest of your day. And now first on the agenda. As talk of leadership changes continues in the Senate, a new proposal is emerging within the majority bloc, one that could pave the way for the chamber's first woman Senate president. Here's the report.
There may be no term sharing agreement, but there are plans to elect Senator Legarda as Senate President before the end of her term in 2028. In an interview with Ted Filon and DJ Chacha, Senate President Tito Sotto confirmed that the majority bloc has already discussed the plan. According to Sotto, the move is not exactly term sharing, but rather a proposal to install Legarda as Senate President toward the end of the 20th Congress, possibly making her the first woman to hold the post.
Gusto nila magkaroon ng first woman Senate President. Sige, gawin natin. So, it's not really term sharing. Kasi kung term sharing, 1.5 years tayo. Or, tigwa 1 year tayo. Medyo hindi yun ang tamang term. Ang tamang term is, we plan to make her Senate President towards the end of her term.
Towards the end
the
of
20th Congress.
But when asked about the reported plan, Legarda gave a reserved response, saying she has no idea and that nothing has been discussed with her yet.
SP Sotto said no term sharing but they have plans to install you as SP before your term ends.
Wala kong ideya, wala kaming pinag-uusapan pa.
But the Senate presidency was indeed offered to you, ma'am. Could you confirm that po? Was it offered to you?
You're excited to have a headline. I know how you feel.
You're ready to be SP once it's given to you, ma'am, the position. You're ready po.
Aba, ganyan din ako noon. You always put words into the mouth.
Zubiri said Legarda is aware of the plan.
No, wala naman formal term sharing, but there's already an agreement.
Sabi niya kasi hindi niya alam eh.
Siyempre, she has to be humble.
The issue gained traction after Legarda briefly sat at the Senate rostrum as presiding officer during Tuesday's session, and after Senator Kiko Pangilinan posted a photo of majority senators together with the caption "Power Sharing." Pangilinan later clarified that the term power sharing was mentioned jokingly at the lounge and that no final agreement was reached during the majority caucus. For now, Sotto says he still enjoys the support of at least 15 senators or a clear majority of the chamber. He added that no group has approached him claiming to have enough numbers to remove him from the post. He also revealed that some minority bloc members had met with him when rumors of a coup surfaced, but stressed that their concerns were not directed against him personally. Among the issue raised were the direction of the Senate Blue Ribbon Committee hearings on the flood control scandal and the removal of Senator Amy Marcos as chair of the Committee on Foreign Relations.
Masyadong marami nakapending na treaty at saka yung issue namin sa against China, yung Foreign Relations Committee medyo favoring yung grupo ng minority pagdating dito sa China Stud. Kami gusto ko sinamin yung sanang plano to adopt yung undiplomatic criticism of these officials ng China sa atin.
Sotto said the Foreign Relations Panel is a majority committee that should be led by a majority member, noting that it had previously been allowed to remain under Marcos despite her minority affiliation in hopes she might eventually join the majority bloc.
And in other news, the DILG said the government is strictly enforcing its anti-EPAL policy, which prohibits civil servants from attaching their names or photos to government projects. Interior Secretary John Vic Remulla told The Big Story that any government employee found violating the directive may face administrative charges.
A good work sells itself. You don't have to put your face, name, image like this everywhere just to sell your story. You can face administrative sanctions from the ombudsman if you violate the policy.
Meanwhile, Remulla said there is still no existing warrant of arrest issued by the International Criminal Court against Senator Bato de la Rosa. The senator has been absent from sessions since November last year.
As far as I am concerned, there is none. As far as the DFA is concerned, there is none. As far as Malacanang is concerned, there is none. But there might be.
And now on to the weather. The effects of Tropical Storm Basyang are now being felt across several provinces in Mindanao. In Surigao del Sur, several houses along the shoreline in Barangay Poblacion, Caguait, were washed away. Water levels rose due to non-stop rains brought by Typhoon Basyang since this morning. Meanwhile, in the town of Cantilan, muddy flood waters rushed into homes as residents used ropes to help each other evacuate. And in Hinatuan, more than 700 residents from 5 island barangays were evacuated due to the threat of the storm. Over in Surigao City, an acacia tree fell along Amat Street after heavy rains and strong winds. Meanwhile, 3 parked vehicles were damaged, but no one was hurt. In Rosario, Agusan del Sur, residents were also evacuated as flood waters rose to nearly waist deep and began approaching homes due to Tropical Storm Basyang. And now let's get the latest on Tropical Storm Basyang. We are joined this morning by Pag-asa weather specialist John Manalo. Good morning, John. Ano na ba ang latest dito kay Tropical Storm Basyang?
Good morning, Pauline, and to all our listeners. Itong si Basyang kagabi ay naglandfall dito sa Bayabas, Surigao del Sur, 11:50 ng midnight. And sa kasalukuyan, ito ay nasa Bohol Sea and heading towards Central Visayas. Ito ay nasa waters of Malimono, yan yung coastal waters po, sa Surigao del Norte. Ito ay may lakas ng hangin na umaabot ng 65 kilometers per hour malapit sa sentro at pagbugso na umaabot ng 90 kilometers per hour. Dahil nga po, dito kay Bagyong Basyang ay nakataas pa rin sa signal number 2 yung mga lugar na ating babanggitin, mga probinsya po ito, the southern portion ng Leyte, Southern Leyte, Bohol, central and southern portions ng Cebu, Siquijor, Negros Oriental, southern portion ng Negros Occidental, Dinagat Island, Surigao del Norte, northern portion ng Surigao del Sur, Agusan del Norte, northern portion ng Agusan del Sur, Camiguin, Misamis Oriental at eastern portion ng Misamis Occidental. Signal number 1 naman, dito sa southern portion ng Occidental Mindoro, southern portion ng Oriental Mindoro, Romblon, northern portion ng Palawan, kasama dito yung Calamian, Cuyo at Cagayancillo Island. Kasama din yung southern portion of Masbate. Signal number 1 din dito sa southern portion ng Eastern Samar, southern portion ng Samar, Biliran, natitirang bahagi ng Leyte, natitirang bahagi ng Cebu, natitirang bahagi ng Negros Occidental, Guimaras, Iloilo, Capiz, Aklan at Antique. Dito naman sa Mindanao, signal number 1 din dito sa central portion ng Surigao del Sur, central portion ng Agusan del Sur, northern and central portions ng Bukidnon, Lanao del Norte, natitirang bahagi ng Misamis Occidental, Lanao del Sur, eastern and central portions ng Zamboanga del Norte, at northern and central portion ng Zamboanga del Sur. Magpapatuloy nga po yung pan-northwest na movement nitong si Bagyong Basyang, at ang good news po dito ay as early as bukas na umaga ay masihina na ito into tropical depression. Babaybayin niya yung northern portion ng Palawan and eventually by Sunday ng madaling araw, posibleng ito ay maging isang low pressure area na lamang. At yan po yung ating update dito sa Bagyong Basyang.
John, may posibilidad ba na maglandfall ulit itong si Basyang?
Yes po, no? Dito sa ating forecast ay posible itong muling maglandfall dito sa southern coastal area ng Bohol. And then eventually after po nun, posible pa ito na maglandfall ulit dito sa southern portion naman ng Cebu. At ganoon din kasunod nito yung Negros Island region. And lastly, kung kung tatapat siya dito sa northern portion ng Palawan, posible yun yung huli niyang landfall sa northern Palawan.
At tama ba dyan na ngayong araw ng Biyernes ang pinaka-critical na araw kung kailan magdadala ng matinding pag-ulan itong si Basyang?
Tama po yun, Pauline, no? At kaya gusto pa rin natin na i-emphasize na kahit na tropical storm lamang po ito, hanggang signal number 2 lang ito, pero yung dadalhin nitong mga pag-ulan ay may potential talaga na magdulot ng mga malawakang pagbaha, lalo na sa bulubunduking lugar o mga flood-prone areas.
May ilang lugar din ba na prone to landslides?
Opo, no, actually, gusto rin po natin na i-emphasize o i-endorse, no, kapag hindi tayo sigurado dun sa lugar na kinatitirikan ng bahay natin, kung landslide prone area ba yan, even kung flood prone area or storm surge prone area, ay pwede natin bisitahin yung hazard hunter. I-google lang po natin yon, then i-click natin sa hazard para makita natin yung status ng ating kinatitirikan ng bahay.
Okay, at finally dyan, may iba pa bang sama ng panahon na minomonitor ngayon ang Pag-asa?
By God's grace po, no, ay wala na tayong nakikita nakasunod nito sa susunod na 2 linggo. And hopefully, no, hanggang matapos na po yung February.
So dapat paghandaan na lang natin itong si Basyang. But for now, maraming salamat para sa update na yan. That was Pag-asa Weather Specialist John Manalo. And coming right up, Kamanggagawa Party List Representative Eli San Fernando joins us to discuss some of the latest developments over at the House of Representatives. Don't go away. Morning Matters will be right back after this break. Keep it here on One News. Welcome back. You're still watching Morning Matters here on One News. And here are some of the latest developments over at the House of Representatives. Cavite 4th District Representative Kiko Barzaga has been suspended without pay once again by the House of Representatives. According to House Ethics Committee Chair J.C. Abalos, instead of showing restraint, Barzaga allegedly committed what the panel described as repeated and escalating misconduct even while under suspension. Barzaga said he would simply lie low and play with his cats and dogs during the next 60 days. Meanwhile, House Majority Leader Sandro Marcos denied that his proposed no work, no pay policy for lawmakers is targeting any individual. Marcos said the measure is meant to strengthen Congress as an institution and improve the quality of legislation amid long-standing concerns over absenteeism and lack of participation in hearings and plenary debates. And a bill seeking to institutionalize a national minimum wage for Filipino workers has been approved at the committee level over at the House of Representatives. And the House Committee on Labor and Employment endorsed a consolidated substitute measure that aims to ensure a fair and adequate baseline income for workers nationwide. Lawmakers said the proposal is part of a broader labor reforms addressing long-standing concerns on wages, safety, and worker protection. And to help us break down the latest developments over at the House, we are joined by Eli San Fernando of the Kamanggagawa Party List. Good morning, Kong Eli. Thank you for being here.
Good morning, Miss Pauline. Magandang umaga rin po sa mga tagapanood sa inyong programa.
Okay, so first of all, Kong Eli, ano po ba ang reaksyon nyo now that the proposed national minimum wage bill has been approved already sa committee level?
We are really happy, Miss Pauline, that after 36 years, finally, tumawid na sa committee level itong panukalang batas to reform our wage fixing mechanism. And this is a bold step from our regional wage fixing mechanism towards a more rational and more logical national minimum wage system.
Pero Kong Eli, for you, enough ba, sapat ba yung measure na to address yung matagal na nating alam na pangangailangan ng mga Filipino workers?
Yes, alam niyo kasi ang current wage fixing mechanism na meron tayo, regional So kaya may mga regional wage. At for so long, since the enactment of RA 6727 noong 1989, hindi nag-respond yung wage fixing mechanism natin doon sa needs ng mga manggagawa, particularly yung nakasulat sa constitution natin the right of workers to living wages. Problema natin sa wage fixing mechanism na meron tayo, yung mga sahod sa probinsya, talagang barat na barat. Say for example, yung mga katabi na mga bayan o mga probinsya ng Metro Manila, we are talking about Antipolo, Cavite, Rizal, yan. Sa Metro Manila, you're earning 695 pesos as minimum wage. Tumawid ka lang ng isang kalye, ang pagitan lang ay puno, pader, isang street lang. Kung nasa Rizal ka, from 695, tatawid ka lang sa Rizal, ang sahod mo ay nasa around 550 to 600 pesos na lang. Same goes with Cavite. At ang problema pa dyan sa current wage fixing mechanism na meron tayo, the law says regional wage fixing mechanism. Ibig sabihin, per region. But when you go to provinces, ang nangyayari is municipalization. So isang probinsya na nga, magkakaiba pa yung sahod from within those provinces. So kaya ina-address nitong consolidated bill ng nagpo-propose ng national minimum wage. Itong problema ng current wage fixing mechanism, and that this will address the long-standing problem of workers when it comes to purchasing power at yung pag-address doon sa prevailing inequality per region sa mga manggagawa.
Oo, kasi alam naman natin na kung Eli, ang inflation patuloy pa rin na umaakyat. Kaya nahihirapan din talaga sumabay itong mga manggagawa. Nahihirapan sila tapos may discrepancies pa pagdating sa mga wages in different provinces. But with this bill that has been passed at the committee level, are you satisfied with it or may mga amendments pa kayong gustong i-propose?
The beauty of the consolidated bill, yung approved substitute bill, is that it incorporated yung mga concerns. It addresses the concerns of businessmen. Second, nagbibigay siya ng sapat na panahon to implement the law, should it pass and become a law. And third, yung proposal, yung kung ano yung nai-envision ng mga manggagawa na wage fixing mechanism nandoon na. So mabilis lang dito sa consolidated na bill, number 1, we exempt yung micro businesses. So if the concern is baka maapektuhan naman ito yung mga micro businesses, hindi po kasama yan, exempted, very clear po yan diyan sa panukalang batas. So micro businesses refer to establishments with 10 workers and below and asset or financial capitalization of 3 million and below. Ito yung mga sari-sari store, ito yung mga barbershop, ito yung mga maliitan na mga negosyo. So hindi po yan kasama and we made it very clear na hindi kasama ang mga micro-enterprises. Second, should this pass into a law, hindi naman agad-agad bukas i-implement yan. Merong 3 taon na period, transition period, para i-close yung gap ng mga sahod sa mga rehiyon papunta ng Manila rate. And afterwards, doon mabubuwag yung mga regional wage boards at magkakaroon ng mas pinalakas na National Wage Commission. And third, yung doon sa mga patungkol doon sa mga manggagawa, ang gusto kasi natin, halimbawa, nawala na yung regional wage rate, yung provincial rates. Ang gusto natin, i-determine yung sahod according to industry, not to geographical location. So, hindi magkakaroon pa rin ng industry tripartite wage and productivity board wherein all industries should come up with the floor o yung wage, yung minimum wage. Ibig sabihin, lahat ng mga magkakasama sa service sector, regardless of where you are in the Philippines, because you are part of the same industry, dapat pare-parehas din yung sahod nyo. Same with manufacturing and other industries. This will make the wage fixing mechanism more rational. Kasi yung 1989 wage fixing mechanism natin is irrational. So yun yung mga mahalagang bahagi dito sa naaprubahan na consolidated bill about national minimum wage.
Kung Eli, ako curious ako dun sa nabanggit nyo na wages will be based sa industry. Paano yung magiging dialogues dyan? So how will you be determining per industry?
Yeah.
Kung ano ba dapat yung nararapat na minimum wage?
Yeah, ang problema kasi sa regional wage fixing mechanism na meron tayo, hindi niya nasasagot yung question na throughout the years, labor productivity and economic productivity, gross domestic product, throughout the years, pataas yan eh. But when you look at the wage rates from 2001 to 2024, hindi nagtatranslate yung increase in labor productivity and gross domestic product doon sa pagtaas naman ng share ng manggagawa sa production.
Right.
Tapos pag tinignan natin yung per region, pataas ng pataas yan. Yung regional gross domestic product, regional labor productivity, always pataas. So there is a fundamental problem with that. Ngayon, dito sa proposal, may twin bill pa kasi itong panukalang batas natin. Dito sa proposal natin, instead of regional wage boards, yung RTWPBs na tinatawag, we will create an industry tripartite wage and productivity board. So meron pa ring productivity board na mag-uusap. So dito mas magiging rational at mas logical yung pagde-determine ng minimum wage rates throughout the Philippines. Kasi dahil itong ang regional wage boards dinidetermine yung sahod according to location. Pinapatunayan na nga ng datos na kalokohan yan. Yung cost of living argument, matagal nang debunk. Ang magpe-prevail na lang ay yung rent, no? Yung presyo ng rent and real property prices. Sa mga probinsya talagang relatively mas mura. But when you take a look at the prices of basic commodities and services, it's almost the same. Or kung mas mura man sa probinsya, we are just talking about 5 pesos, 10 pesos. Right. We are not talking about hundreds of pesos. So through this industry wage fixing mechanism, mas nako-correct niya yung wage fixing mechanism na meron tayo. And this is more logical. Why? As long as the regional wage fixing mechanism persists, yung local economy natin will suffer because napupwersa niya yung mga manggagawa at yung lokal na ekonomiya na hindi mag-grow. Ang baba ng sahod, say for example in Bicol. So the local economy in Bicol will not grow or aabot niya lang yung certain level dahil yung mga manggagawa, which are the consumers themselves also, napakababa ng purchasing power. So when you increase wages of workers in the provinces, at i-determine yan, batay doon sa panukala natin na Industry Wage and Productivity Board, mas nabibigyan mo ng mas mataas na purchasing power yung mga manggagawa, thus benefiting the local economy and in the long run will benefit our whole economy. So ito yung kaya tinitignan namin ito na isang major reform pagdating sa wage fixing mechanism that will address itong mga concern ng mga manggagawa patungkol sa sahod at doon sa kanilang kakayahan na bumili ng mga produkto at serbisyo.
Maganda talaga kung Eli, yung industry mechanism because workers will then get a share of the gains kasi sila na din naman talaga yung dahilan, yung rason kung bakit lumalago yung kanilang industriya. Okay, but what is the biggest hurdle you're seeing in getting this bill passed into law?
Well, the concern of big business groups, nag-submit na kasi sila ng kanilang position paper, is that they oppose this measure, saying that the current wage fixing mechanism that we have is working and more rational. Nung committee hearing nung committee deliberations, we have pointed out that the current wage fixing mechanism is irrational and in the long run, it will hurt the businesses. So, pero ang kagandahan dyan, from one of the hearings during the committee deliberation about this bill, sabi naman ng representative from the Employers Confederation of the Philippines is that they are open to discussing with us their reservations or apprehensions about this bill. Kami naman willing and we will be more than happy to present to them our models. So yun yung pinaka-hurdle nito kasi the national minimum wage bill will enter now into plenary debate. And thus we are imploring first the House leadership na i-prioritize ang pag-uusap dito sa panukalang batas na ito. So yun lang ang ina-expect natin na hurdle or challenge dito. Sure tayo na baka haharangan ito ng mga malalaking negosyante. Pero ready naman tayo na makipagdebate at i-address yung mga fears and concerns nila about this bill.
Wow, nako, Kong Eli, I'm sure maging mahaba pa yung mga talakayan dyan. But as you mentioned, this is still a big win, lalo na sa ating mga manggagawa. But before we let you go, Kong Eli, baka we can get your thoughts na rin dito sa proposed bill ni Congressman Sandro Marcos naman na no work, no pay daw sa mga lawmakers. Ano po ba ang posisyon nyo doon?
We fully support the presidential son and our majority floor leader. Napakaganda po ng panukalang batas ni Representative Sandro Marcos. It's high time that we introduce such reform in Congress. Alam niyo, sa totoo lang, dapat automatic na yan. Pag no work, no pay ka. Kasi ang mga manggagawa sa pribadong sektor, pag di pumasok, walang sahod. Pag na-late, bawas. Pag nag-OT, kadalasan nga, wala ngang OT pay. What makes us so special? Yan yung binabanggit ko Ano bang espesyal sa mga congressman? And this will address the problem, the long-standing problem of absenteeism. Huwag na tayo maglokohan. Ang daming mga absenerong mga congressman tsaka mga senador ni hindi mo makita yung kanilang anino sa plenary for such a long time, and then kapag malapit na magtapos yung termino, doon na lang magpapakita. So this is a disservice. Yung ganitong sistema is a disservice to the Filipino workers and the taxpayers. Imagine, congressmen are earning 300,000 a month, SG, salary grade 31. Pero kahit umabsent sila, hindi sila magpakita, hindi mag-report sa duty, makukuha ng buo yung kanilang benepisyo at mga sahod. Hindi ba napakapangit naman na mensahe yun sa mga manggagawa? So kaya itong no work no pay na panukalang batas ni Representative Sandro Marcos is a good step, especially at this point in time na yung institusyon namin ay beleaguered. Napakababa ng tiwala ng mga tao sa Kongreso. We must start reforms from within ourselves. Umpisahan natin dito sa usapin ng sahod. Some will say, hindi naman dyan kumikita ang mga congressman sa sahod. Yung iba naman, iba ang pinagkakakitaan. Still, this is a good step para magkaroon ng lively debates, plenary debates. Ang problema, alam nyo, pag nasa plenary ako, iilan na lang kami na nandoon Wala pa sa 20. Yung mga congressman, di ba? Paano magkakaroon ng masigla at masayang debate at paano magiging productive yung mga deliberation sa Kongreso kung puro absent yung kasama namin. So we support and we will rally behind the proposal of House Majority Leader Sandro Marcos.
Well, I guess we'll have to wait and see rin kung Eli, kung ito ba isusuportahan din ng ibang mga lawmakers natin, lalo na yung mga panay absent dyan sa Kongreso. Nako. But we're gonna leave that there for now. Thank you very much for sharing your insights with us. That was Congressman Eli San Fernando of the Kamanggagawa Party List. Maraming salamat po. Now, up next, we will wrap the biggest stories of the week, from impeachment complaints to political dynasties, with the integrated bar of the Philippines National President, Attorney Alan Panolong. Stay tuned. Morning Matters will be back after this break. Keep it here on One News. Good morning and welcome back. I'm Pauline Verzosa, and here on Morning Matters, we talk about the most pressing issues and we give you the context behind the headlines. A third impeachment complaint may soon be filed against Vice President Sara Duterte. A source from News 5 says another group is preparing to lodge fresh cases against Duterte on Monday, February 9th. This follows two impeachment complaints already filed this week by Bayan and lawmakers from the Makabayan bloc, as well as allied civil society groups endorsed by Representatives Laila de Lima and Percy Sendanya. For his part, House Speaker Boji D said no impeachment complaint has been referred to him yet. ACT Teachers Party List Representative Antonio Tino said the Speaker has the discretion to include the complaints in the order of business, possibly after February 6, citing shifting Supreme Court rulings on the one-year impeachment ban. Tino also responded to claims from Duterte's camp that they are ready to present evidence if an impeachment trial proceeds.
Naku, narinig na natin yan. We're ready to explain. Pero, hindi, tatakbo na naman sa Supreme Court. Matagal na pong hinihingan ng paliwanag at marinig ang katotohanan at hinggil sa buong issue ng confidential funds mula sa Vice President. Ngunit, palagi siyang nagtatago, palagi siyang nag-aasal pusit, at hindi nagbibigay ng anumang paliliwanag. Don't wait for the impeachment proceedings, ipaliwanag mo na ngayon.
Meantime, Attorney Michael Poa, spokesperson for Vice President Duterte's defense team, denied reports that Mary Grace Piatos will be presented if the case reaches the Senate. Poa said he has not announced any plan. Mary Grace Piatos was previously listed as one of the alleged recipients of confidential funds from the office of the Vice President. Well, this week we saw major moves on political reforms and impeachment complaints. The Senate started deliberations on 6 versions of the anti-political dynasty bill, and constitutional experts still remain divided over the scope of the proposed ban, while some senators from prominent political families have expressed openness to the proposal. Meanwhile, 2 new impeachment complaints were filed against Vice President Sara Duterte on Monday, February 2, and the House Justice Committee just declared 2 impeachment complaints against President Bongbong Marcos as sufficient in form but insufficient in substance. And now let's get insights from Integrated Bar of the Philippines National President, Attorney Alan Panolong. He joins us live this morning on Morning Matters. Good morning, Attorney. Thanks for being here on the show.
Good morning, Pauline, and good morning to our viewers.
So it's been an eventful week, especially on the political front. Let's start with the impeachment proceedings that took place earlier this week against President Bongbong Marcos. Attorney, how would you assess how the House Justice Committee conducted the proceedings?
They timely acted on the impeachment cases filed against the sitting president, no? And I think they wanted to solve the issue or the problem that they encountered during the time when the vice president was impeached. So talagang binibigyan nila ngayon ng tuhon at pansin yung mga impeachment cases.
Yes, a lot of analysts also pointed out, Attorney, na this time, hindi talaga nag-dribble ang Kongreso, ang House of Representatives. They tackled this immediately, although it was also deemed insufficient when it came to determining the sufficiency in substance. Now, Attorney, critics say the complaints were railroaded, they were prematurely killed, and some of the members of the committee even appeared to be lawyering for the respondent, in this case, President Marcos. Do you share that sentiment also?
I haven't really looked into the impeachment cases that were filed before the House of Representatives. But, some of the members are lawyers. So maybe they look into the evidentiary in the evidence attached to the impeachment complaints, and on the basis of their evaluation and appreciation, they think that they believe that these evidence are insufficient. So they are in a position to rule on the insufficiency of substance, because we cannot allow an impeachment complaint to progress to the Senate if the evidence are wanting. So it would be a waste of money and resources on the part of the government. Not to mention that there are a lot of equally important legislative bills pending before the House of Representatives or the Congress in general, because there are also equally important bills in Senate, which would suffer a lot if an impeachment complaint or an impeachment proceeding will be had against an impeachable officer, then only to find out that the evidence are weak. So I think that is the position of the House Secretary of Justice. That's why they found out that it is insufficient in substance, although it is sufficient in form.
Oo, attorney, kasi yung hinahanap talaga ng mga miyembro, no, yung personal knowledge and the authenticity of the records and the documents. And because eventually, if this does become impeachment, articles of impeachment, sila yung magiging prosecutors niyan, right? When it becomes a trial over at the Senate. But how can complainants strengthen any impeachment complaint moving forward, as for future impeachment complaints, knowing what we know now, kung gaano talaga sobrang arduous nitong process of establishing sufficiency in substance, attorney?
Well, first things first, they have to lay down what are the particular violations that the impeachable officer had committed. Then upon determining so, then they have to check on the evidence. No, they have to look into the evidence. Number one, titingnan po nila kung ano yung relevance, competency, at saka yung authenticity ng isang evidence. Because, an evidence may be anything may be used as evidence, but as to its admissibility, it's a different matter. So ganun po yun. So hindi, especially so that impeachment is a sui generis case, no? So, and we are holding the highest official of the land accountable for an alleged infraction. So the evidence must be convincing enough. Because remember that these impeachable officers, like the president and the vice president, they have mandate from the people. So in order to remove them from office by reason of their violation of the offenses mentioned in the Constitution, so the evidence should be really overwhelming. Hindi yun siya yung parang pwede na yan. So when we verify the evidence, it is actually not competent, or it's irrelevant, or it's not an authentic one.
And I believe Chairwoman Luistro did liken this to preliminary investigation in court proceedings. So kailangan nandun talaga yung basis, it's grounded on solid basis and evidence. But now that there are forthcoming impeachment complaints against Vice President Sara Duterte, how do you see that prospering, attorney?
Again, as I mentioned, it would depend on the evidence that will be produced by the proponents of the impeachment complaints. But impeachment is, although it is a process or procedure of removing a highest official or those enumerated officials under the Constitution, but we have to take note that impeachment is actually a political exercise also. So may mga interplaying factors. So as far as the political aspect, it may have an effect on the progress of the impeachment cases should it be filed, as mentioned, next week by the proponents against the vice president.
Well, the charges are still somewhat the same from the complaint that was filed last year, attorney, no? It's still bribery, graft, and corruption. And mukhang yung evidence na gagamitin dito are yung mga notices of disallowance from COA, nandyan din yung mga disbursement forms. Do you think that will count as authentic records in order to hurdle sufficiency in substance?
If the as mentioned by Representative Luistro, if the process in the preliminary investigation will be similarly used, in appreciating the impeachment complaint against the vice president. So mataas po yung ban natin ngayon. Kailangan yung evidence should have made this reasonable certainty of conviction, no? So having said that, if these documents are authentic and they were produced from the source, and that indeed there were findings by the competent government agency like the Commission on Audit, stating that there was indeed illegal use of public funds, then it may. But if, say, the COA process is a long process kasi it doesn't mean that it's a transaction was they have this process na kung halimbawa i-disallow in audit yung isang bagay, meron pang remedies available for the government employee. Pwede pa niyang i-appeal yun. pwedeng tumakbo hanggang Supreme Court. So meaning to say, as to the findings of irregularities or illegality of the transaction, hindi pa po fully settled yun. Because once it would be appealed before the Supreme Court, the court would settle whether the disbursement is allowed or not. So medyo magkakaroon sila ng problema dyan kung COA audit po yung gagamitin nila because the COA audit, the COA findings are not actually final.
Well, nabanggit nyo rin kanina, Attorney, this impeachment process is not just for exacting accountability. Let's face it, it's also a political game. It's a numbers game. But with that, does impeachment still function as an effective tool for accountability in our political system?
I would say yes, because this is a mix of holding our public officials accountable, and at the same time, if meron din siyang kaakibat na political interest, no. But as we look into the previous impeachment cases, I think somehow the impeachment was proven to be effective in removing those public officials concerned, no, who are alleged to have committed violations against the Constitution. Although meron nga lang siyang political, may halong politika po talaga. It is unavoidable because the especially when we're impeaching the highest official of the land, no, the president and the vice president.
Okay, but Attorney, some critics pointed out that the ruling of the Supreme Court na baka merong judicial overreach on their part because they did rule on something that is a legislative matter. What do you think? What do you make of the Supreme Court's ruling there? Did it in any way weaken or emasculate the House's power, exclusive power to initiate impeachment complaints?
While it may be true that the House of Representatives has this sole authority to initiate impeachment complaint against impeachable officers, but this is not an absolute power because under the 1997 Constitution, the power of the judiciary has been expanded, which includes to settle actual case or actual dispute or case involving whether the agency has committed grave abuse of discretion amounting to lack or excess of its jurisdiction. So, ang impeachment complaint po, meron po niyang proseso eh. So once the process has not been complied with, then it becomes a judicial controversy. So it can be questioned before the court, which is the Supreme Court. So the court merely uphold the supremacy of the Constitution when it ruled that the impeachment case against the Vice President was unconstitutional because it did not pass through the constitutional requirement. So tama lang po yung ginawa ng Supreme Court.
Okay, but at the same time,
when it ruled, it did not actually. It was not a judicial overreach, but it was simply upholding the Constitution. Yun po yun.
But at the same time, Attorney, this episode, this whole debate has revived talks of charter change. Ano naman po ang posisyon nyo doon?
Masalimuot na kanyan na usapin yung about charter change because I think there are so many pending legislative measures before the Congress. Nandyan yung bills on anti-political dynasty, then proposal to amend the Constitution. So kailangan maisa yung pananaw ng ating mga mambabatas kasi parang nakikita ko parang sabog ang dami nilang plano. So they have to make a priority bill, no? Kung ano ba yung bills na pwedeng maging batas, no? So for the charter change, it's a very, I don't think as of the moment, I don't think it will pass through the Congress because as I said, mas maraming equally important issues, no, that the Congress should address, and even the people are for me, I think we are not also ready for that.
Okay, so from impeachment, if we may now shift to the anti-political dynasty bill. This week, the Senate already started deliberations on 6 versions of the bill. Ano po bang tingin niyo doon? Are we now closer this time to having this bill enacted into law? Because attorney, bills have been filed in almost every Congress since 1987, but none have prospered. But do you think this time we might be closer to that?
I think so, because 2 weeks ago I was invited as a resource speaker in the House of Representatives, and there are 22 bills pending before the House. Defining what political dynasty is as enshrined in the Constitution. So, for so long as the House of Representatives and the Senate will work hand in hand on this, so I believe within this year or even next year, we may be able to pass. The Congress may be able to pass a law or enabling law that would define anti-political dynasty.
Pero ang tanong, attorney, how do we define a political dynasty? I mean, from a legal standpoint, in your opinion, what level of consanguinity is generally considered acceptable for political succession or for those holding public office?
Alam niyo po, even the framers of the Constitution were really divided as to the definition on the political dynasty. No? In fact, that's why they left it to the Congress to pass an enabling law that would define anti-political dynasty. So the way I look at it, I think for me, the most acceptable is to prohibit up to 2nd degree of consanguinity and affinity. Because if we expand further, my proposal, I understand there was a proposal to expand up to 4th degree.
4th degree.
So there are interplaying principles here, no, na pwedeng it may violate equal protection of the law, no? Kasi but what makes superior the rights of your, for instance, the rights of your first cousin who are already in public service, kung hanggang 4th degree ang prohibition or disqualification. So marami pong interplaying principles dito. In fact, if my memory serves me right, I think there's only one country which has this law, no, on anti-political dynasty. So far, nag-research po ako, wala pa akong nahanap ng mga batas na defining what is political dynasty. So it is left entirely to the Congress. So what I believe is acceptable is to make it up to 2nd degree of affinity and consanguinity, meaning to say from the parents to their children. So yun po yung ano, kasi parang nagiging family affair kung father, mother, then yung mga anak, they are all holding elective public positions, especially in one political unit. So it is really well entrenched now that we have seen so many cases like that.
So hindi na po dapat umabot sa mga pinsan, sa mga kapatid pa, only to the 2nd degree. We're going to leave this conversation there for now. Thank you very much for sharing your insights with us. Integrated Bar of the Philippines National President, Attorney Alan Panulong. Thank you po.
Thank you, Ms. Pauline.
Don't go away. We still have more matters to discuss right after this break. Keep it here on One News. Welcome back. You're still watching Morning Matters here on One News. President Bongbong Marcos resumed public engagements outside Malacanang Palace 2 weeks after being diagnosed with diverticulitis. The chief executive attended the launch of the Testa Skills Passport mobile app in San Juan City on Thursday. He later took part in the 2026 Philippine Telco Summit in Pasay. In his speech, Marcos pledged to continue making jobs and skills training more accessible to Filipinos.
Asahan ninyo na kami sa pamahalaan ay hindi titigil sa trabaho upang tulungan na kayo ay guminhawa ang inyong mga buhay. Sa pamamagitan ng Testa Skills Passport mobile application, may all-in-one na digital platform na tayo. Maaari rin itong ituring bilang isang job portal site. Iko-connecta rin ito ang mga estudyante, graduate, manggagawa, at ang industry representative mula sa lahat ng rehiyon ng bansa.
Well, meanwhile, the legal counsel of resigned Ako Bicol Party List Representative Zaldico has denied reports of back-channel talks with the government. Attorney Rui Rondain said Ko did not send any emissary to negotiate with the state, stressing that no such move would happen without his legal counsel's approval. Rondain also dismissed claims that Ko was asked to return billions of pesos as a condition for possible talks.
Ano i-restore ni Zaldi? Diba? 57 billion. Saan ba galing yung 57 billion na yan? Invento yun eh. Hindi ko alam kung saan nila kinuha. I'd like to know kung ano yung math nila doon sa 57 billion na yun.
And now in sports, Alex Ayala's singles campaign at the Abu Dhabi Open ended in a straight sets loss to world number 11 Ekaterina Alexandrova in Thursday's quarterfinals. Ayala had fewer unforced errors, 27-30, but Alexandrova dominated with 33 winners, compared to the Filipinas' 15. And in doubles, Ayala and Janice Chen booked a spot in the semifinals after defeating Zhang Shuai and Cristina Buxa. After Abu Dhabi, the 20-year-old is scheduled to play at the Qatar Total Energies Open in Doha. And in volleyball, PLDT and Signal came away with big wins in the 2026 PVL All-Filipino Conference. Savvy Davison exploded for 26 points as PLDT swept powerhouse Creamline in straight sets to open its campaign strong. Kiana D, Jovi Prado, and Kim Fajardo also provided solid support as the high-speed hitters spoiled the return of Creamline stars Gia de Guzman and Bernadette Pons. Meanwhile, Signal stayed unbeaten with a 4-set win over Chocomucho. Erica Santos led with 18 points, while Vanny Gandler added 16 to lift the Super Spikers to a 2-0 start. And that wraps up today's episode of Morning Matters. We hope we've given you just the right start to your morning. Let's make the day matter. I'm Pauline Verzosa. Kapatid, we are One News, all sides, all the time.